The homeless man whispered hoarsely, "Don't talk, just listen." Officer Rachel Tawes froze mid-step. She had just exited her patrol car, the drizzle of late evening tapping steadily against her cap, when a ragged figure leaning against a crumbling brick wall caught her attention. At first glance, he looked like every other forgotten soul she'd passed in the city. Layered in filthy, rain-soaked clothes, an unkempt beard masking most of his face, long hair dripping like tangled ropes. But his eyes, piercing, urgent, burning, were nothing like the glazed, distant looks of others lost addiction or despair. At his side, a mutt with matted fur stood rigid, ears pinned back, a low growl vibrating in its throat. The dog's gaze wasn't on Rachel, though. It was fixed sharply on the shadows at the mouth of the alley. Rachel's hand instinctively brushed her holster. Every nerve told her this could be danger. Yet, something in his tone, a mixture of desperation and authority, made her pause. He didn't sway. He didn't smell of alcohol. His words weren't slurred. He wasn't begging for change. Instead, his voice carried the weight of someone who had lived too long in the dark corners of life and had learned how to read them. "Behind you," he whispered again, his cracked lips trembling. Rachel's stomach tightened. Slowly, she shifted, letting her back press against the wet metal of her cruiser, and glanced toward the alley. The brick walls gleamed slick under the rain. Trash cans lined the side, water trickling down like veins. Nothing moved. Still, the dog's growl deepened, hackles bristling. Training screamed at her, trust instincts, trust signals. Both were in full alarm. The man raised one hand, the fingernails blackened with dirt, and pointed into the shadows. "He's been waiting there," he rasped. "Watched you drive up. I saw him follow you." Rachel's heart pounded against her ribs. She steadied her breathing, eyes narrowing. The drizzle shifted into steady rainfall, as if nature itself was trying to heighten the tension. "Who's there?" Rachel called sharply into the alley, her voice bouncing off brick. No answer. Only rain and the distant hum of the city. For a breath, Rachel almost doubted him. Almost. Then, scuffle. Quick, nervous, undeniable. Footsteps brushing wet pavement. The dog barked once, sharp and fierce, the sound exploding like a shot. Rachel's flashlight clicked on, beams slicing through the rain like a blade. A figure burst from the alley. Rachel's hand flew to her gun, body tense for a trigger pull, until the homeless man's voice, rough but commanding, cut through the storm. "Don't shoot. He's got a knife." Metal flashed in the beam of light. The stranger lunged, blade raised, wild eyes glinting. Rachel sidestepped, boots sliding slightly on the slick pavement. Her weapon cleared its holster. But before she could fire, the dog lunged, teeth bared. The attacker snarled, slashing wildly. Try fend off snapping jaws. And then, like a sudden storm surge, the homeless man himself launched forward. His frail, rain-soaked body slammed into the assailant, both men crashing into the puddled ground with a sickening splash. Rachel froze, gun trained but finger-stiff on the trigger. She didn't have a clear shot. Every second was chaos. Fists, snarls, knife glinting too close, the dog snapping, the rain hammering down. "Get off him!" she shouted, but the ragged man clung tighter, grunting as the blade whipped inches from his face. Rachel circled, desperate for an angle. The attacker thrashed, shouting curses. Rachel fired one warning shot skyward. The sound cracked the night wide open. The attacker flinched. That fraction of hesitation gave the homeless man just enough leverage. With a guttural yell, he wrested the knife free, tossing it across the pavement. It skittered to Rachel's boots. Without hesitation, she kicked it away. Adrenaline roaring, Rachel dove in, snapping cuffs around the man's wrist with a sharp click. The fight collapsed, the attackers sagging under their combined weight. Silence, save for patter rain and the dog's ragged panting. Rachel exhaled, chest heaving. She holstered her weapon, turning to the man who had just saved her life. He was soaked through, chest rising in broken gasps, hair plastered across his face. His dog sat faithfully at his side again, tail giving one weak wag, as if to say, "We did it." "You," Rachel started, but her voice faltered. For the first time in her career, She realized her survival hadn't come from training, protocol, or backup. It had come from someone society had deemed invisible. "You could have been killed," she whispered finally. The man shrugged, wiping at the mud streaked across his cheek. "So could you." His voice carried no pride, only truth. Rachel's throat tightened. She reached into her cruiser, pulling out a thick gray blanket, and draped it across his trembling shoulders. He didn't protest. The dog curled closer, both of them shivering. Up close, beneath the dirt and weariness, Rachel saw a sharpness in his gaze, awareness, intelligence. His earlier words echoed in her head, urgent, precise, life-saving. This was no broken mind rambling in the street. This was a man with a story, buried under years of silence and survival. "Thank you," Rachel said, voice steady but weighted. He studied her, as though testing her sincerity, then gave a faint nod. His lips twitched, almost into a smile. By the time backup arrived, sirens piercing through the storm, Rachel had already decided something. When officers asked to stop the attacker, Rachel answered simply, "He did." The silence that followed was heavy. Some smirked, others exchanged looks. But no one argued. When Rachel finally turned back to him, she asked softly, "What's your name?" He hesitated, then whispered, "David." Rachel repeated it under her breath, committing it to memory. David, the man who had saved her life. David. The name clung to Rachel's mind long after the sirens faded, and the attacker was taken away in cuffs. She stood in the rain, watching as other officers brushed past him without a glance. To them, he was just another vagrant, another body leaning too close to the line of society's comfort. But Rachel couldn't look at him the same way anymore. Not after tonight. Not after his warning had saved her life. "Do you have anywhere to go?" she asked quietly, after the others dispersed. David pulled the blanket tighter, his shoulders hunched. His dog pressed close, shivering. "We manage," he muttered. Rachel crouched slightly to meet his eyes. "That's not what I asked." For a long moment, he didn't answer. His gaze drifted toward the glowing windows across the street, warm squares of life that belonged to someone else. Shelters are full. Cops don't usually ask me that question. Rachel swallowed. She knew he was right. People walked by every day, blind by choice. Tonight, though, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. "Then come with me," she said finally. David's eyes widened, suspicion flickering like a flame. "With you?" "Not to my home," Rachel clarified. "But I can get you and your dog a warm place for the night. Food, safety. You earned that much." His lips pressed together, torn between pride and exhaustion. Then, slowly, he nodded. At the precinct, heads turned as Rachel escorted David and his dog inside. Some officers whispered, others scoffed, but no one challenged her. She held her spine straight, jaw set. To her, this man wasn't a statistic or a nuisance. He was the reason she was standing there at all. The department staff tried to wave him off with half-hearted gestures toward waiting areas, but Rachel pushed. She had blankets brought, hot food set down, even a bowl of water for the dog. David ate carefully, as though each bite was something he had to earn. His dog devoured the food instantly, then curled at his feet, tail finally wagging with relief. Watching him, Rachel felt something twist inside her. He wasn't helpless. He wasn't broken. He was just unseen. When he finished, Rachel slid into the chair across from him. "Tell me something, David. How did you know he was there?" The man with the knife. David rubbed his hands together, the grime of years staining every crease. "You learn to see things when you live outside. People think we're blind, but we're the ones watching while they stare at their phones. I saw him trail your car. Saw the way he moved, hiding in the shadows. His eyes gave him away." Rachel studied him, impressed despite herself. His observation skills were sharp, sharper than some rookies she'd trained. "You could have walked away. Why warn me?" His gaze dropped to the floor. "Because I couldn't stand by and watch someone die. Not again." The words landed heavy. Rachel leaned forward. "Again?" David flinched, then shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Not my story anymore." But Rachel knew better. Stories always mattered, especially the ones people tried hardest to bury. Over the next days, their paths crossed again and again. At first, Rachel convinced herself it was coincidence. But every time she patrolled near that sector, David was there, sometimes, sitting quietly on a bench with his dog, sometimes watching the flow of people like a sentry no one had asked for. One night, after her shift, she found herself bringing him a bag of food. She told herself it was nothing, a simple gesture. But the look in his eyes when he took it, part gratitude, part disbelief, told her it wasn't nothing at all. He spoke more that evening. Not much, but enough. Enough to reveal fragments of a life once whole, a family long gone, a career he didn't name, battles fought overseas perhaps, or maybe closer to home. Rachel didn't press. She knew trust was a slow climb, but she saw it. The way his posture straightened when she treated him with respect, the way his eyes softened when his dog leaned into her hand. Beneath the layers of dirt and despair, there was a man of courage. Weeks later, everything changed again. A call came over dispatch. Disturbance in a warehouse district. Rachel arrived first. Shadows flickered. Adrenaline surged. And just like that night in the rain, danger closed in fast. But she wasn't alone. David was there. He had been nearby, as if drawn by instinct to the chaos. And when trouble erupted, he didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, warning her again, his eyes catching movements hers missed. His dog barked, driving a would-be attacker back just long enough for Rachel to cuff him. Later, as backup secured the scene, Rachel pulled David aside. "You don't just survive out here," she said softly. "You see things the rest of us miss. You got instincts most officers would kill for." David gave a half smile, weary but genuine. "Used to, maybe. Not anymore." Rachel shook her head. "No, David. Still, right now." That night, as she drove him and his dog to a shelter that finally had space, Rachel couldn't shake the thought. This man didn't belong invisible on the streets. He belonged where his strength, his vigilance, his heart could matter. As David climbed out of the car, Rachel caught his arm gently. "You saved my life," she said again, steady and clear. "Not once. Twice. I won't forget that. And I don't think the city should either." For a moment, David just looked at her. The rain fell soft, streetlights painting his face in gold and shadow. His lips parted, but no words came. Instead, he nodded, eyes glistening with something more than rain. Rachel watched him disappear into shelter doors, the dog trotting faithfully beside him. And for the first time in years, David didn't feel like a ghost. He felt seen. Epilogue. Months later, whispers spread to the precinct about a man volunteering at shelters, helping keep watch at night, breaking up fights before they started, guiding lost souls toward safety. A man with sharp eyes, a loyal dog, and a quiet strength. Rachel heard the stories and smiled, because she knew the city had mocked him, ignored him, stepped over him. But the night he whispered, "Don't talk, just listen," he changed everything. And maybe, just maybe, he had found a way to change his own life too.